Hello, I'm Josh and I'll be running today's online workshop session. The topic today is confidence, so we'll be working through some techniques on confidence. These sessions are for the Harris. Some of you may have had a workshop with me in person before lockdown, but because of the measures at the minute, we're doing these online. I'm delivering two to start off with. This is the first one, as I say, and it is on confidence and confidence tips. So confidence means a lot of different things. You hear it a lot. It's something that's always present when you're at school, when you're with your mates, with your family. We talk about confidence a lot, but really, what is confidence and why do we need it so much? What I want to talk about first off is self-confidence. Self-confidence is obviously the confidence that you have and the confidence you have within yourself and your ability. One way to look at self-confidence is looking at some of your fears and some of the things that are maybe stopping you from being more confident in things that you do day to day. Now, before we go into identifying fears, it's always good to look at your experience so far. For example, whoever's watching this now is watching because the Harris wants you to get involved with what the Harris does. And so in that case, if you, for example, felt not so confident about getting involved with a project like this, first of all, look at your experience, look at you, and see how the Harris has asked for you. You know, you're needed, your expertise in whatever that may be. Maybe it's your point of view because of your age, maybe that's because where you live. But in this case, the Harris wants you because you've got stuff that the Harris wants to know and wants help on. So first off, if we look at experience and you try and maybe have a look at the stuff that you've got experience in already. So for example, you may be experienced in public speaking. You may have done that a few times. You may be experienced in writing. You may be experienced in working with teams. Now those things, once you identify those, sometimes you've got experience and you're good at stuff, but without actually reflecting on it, you've not noted it, and so then there's sometimes some maybe worries around it. So what it's always good to do is write down the list of experience you've got and check that out, write it down, keep reading it, remind yourself of it. If you're thinking about fears and stuff that you may be a bit worried about, they're usually things that stop you from being confident because they're things that you're kind of unsure of and how they're going to go. And sometimes a lot of the time, it's the fear of the unknown and the fear of what might happen because you've not done it before, because you've not got experience in it. So for example, it's like, I may have been really worried about getting the bus on my own. I know I was when I was a lot younger. Getting on a bus on my own was a bit of a worry. But then when I'd done it a few times, it was no problem. I was used to it. And that's what we can do with our fears. We can work on them and we can look at them. And especially in this case, you know, working in a team, public speaking, we can work on those things and that will rise our confidence up. Now, I know a lot of the stuff I'm going to be talking about in this workshop and a lot of the stuff that I'm mentioning are things that you already know and things that you've already heard of probably, but what it is that I'm doing is I'm bringing them all up, digging them out, talking about them and bringing them to the forefront of our minds so that then we can just think about them a bit more and work on them a little bit. One thing that I want you to do and a task I want to jump into now is a task that is similar to one if you were at the leadership workshop that we ran before lockdown. So I'm going to ask you to write something down now. I want you to write down 3 attributes or skills that you think you have and that you feel that you're confident with. I want you to write those down on a piece of paper. When you've got those 3 attributes or skills, I want you to look at them, read over them, and reflect on them. Really think about it. When you're writing these down, think about those key things that really sort of make you you and what you're good at. Once you've got those 3 things, I then want you to put them to one side and I want you to ask 3 other people that you know, might be a family member, a friend, someone that you're close to or work with. I want you to ask that person what they think a strong attribute of yours is or a strong skill of yours is. When they think about you, what do they write down? And it's a positive thing, so it's ask them to write down something positive. Once you've got that, I want you to ask 2 more people. So that's 3 people altogether I want you to ask. And then I want you to write them all down, put them all together and think about it. Think about what you got. It's a really interesting thing to do because when I did this, there was a couple of skills that other people told me that they saw in me or saw that I'd done before that I hadn't even remembered, that I haven't even registered. So then I added those to my list. There were some things that I wrote on my list that nobody else mentioned. And so what that was good for was for me to maybe work on those skills a bit more and to show other people that they were skills that I did have. So with those three people, it's really good that those three people are maybe from different circles. You might be somebody from who you work with, someone from school, someone you study with, for example, and then somebody that you live with, or somebody that's your neighbour, or somebody that you're close with in a different way, because that way, we're quite different. We wear different hats in life. We're different in different situations and at different places. So it's good to try and get an overall mix of who you are and what other people think about that. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to pause this video now for 10 minutes. That's all, 10 minutes while you write down your 3 attributes. So that's 10 minutes. Here's a reminder of what I'm asking you to do. Pause it for 10 minutes or however long it takes you to do this, but I really want you to reflect and think about those attributes. Brilliant. So now you've done that, you should have your 3 attributes or 3 skills. And so I want you to take those away now, put them to one side while we crack on with the rest of this online session. But keep them to one side. And I really do want you to go and ask those 3 people that you may choose in your life and to ask them the attributes. You don't need to share yours with them. You don't need to share it to anyone else as well. This is an exercise for you. So you can ask these people and don't be afraid of asking them. It should usually be quite a positive exchange, so it's a really nice activity to do, and you could even ask them to do it for themselves, and you could do one for them and pass it on. So one thing I want to talk about now is sort of a bit of my own experience really. So when I was 19, I'm 23 now, when I was 19 I started my own business doing filming and video production, filming short films and adverts for people, and that's what I do mainly, as well as bits of theatre and stuff like that. And kind of getting into that, it was quite daunting because I knew that I was a lot younger than sort of people coming out of university and doing the same sort of thing, or people working in the industry that I wanted to go in. I was a lot younger and it was daunting to me. I sort of felt like I didn't have the right to be in those rooms and having those discussions, and turning up filming someone who was like twice the age as me and I was in charge was something that was like... But one thing that I do want to talk about is that is sort of irrelevant. Your age is irrelevant in a lot of situations like that. You have been asked for, think about why you're watching this video now. The Harris has introduced you to this program and to the work that it does, and it wants your help. We want your advice, we want your guidance, because it's really valuable and it's what's missing maybe at the moment. So that's why this is happening, that's why you're watching this, and I just want to reaffirm that and really push for the fact that, the reason you're here, the reason you're watching this is because, your input is really valid. And so I don't want people watching this to maybe think, I'm not good enough, I'm not able to speak in those rooms, I'm not able to, offer my input, because it's not needed. It absolutely is. And remember to always remind yourself of that. So like I say, I'm 23 now, so I've not been to school for a while, or college, and I didn't go to university because I had my other stuff I was doing. But I feel like one thing that I picked up and carried from school was this thing of that, the older people in the room were the ones that had the most knowledge and the most sort of power in the situation. And one thing that I want to say is when we do things like sort of outside of school and outside of education, that's not necessarily the case. Like for the work that we're doing at the Harris, that's not the case, is it? It's a sharing. Everybody works together and shares the ideas, and there's a process to it. And I think that's something that I'd really always like to push as well. It's like, shake off that school vibe and be confident to speak in those places. It's a total different setting. And I think that that's something to really keep in mind as well. So setting goals, again, I feel like I'm just going to be preaching stuff that people already do, but in this case, I just want to bring it back to the forefront again, like I said at the beginning. Setting goals is something I do all the time. I always have on my notes on my phone, I have like a list of stuff that I need to do and goals that I need to work on just to keep remembering. And then I tick them off when I feel like I've sort of completed them a bit. One thing that I would say in this case, when we're talking about confidence, is we talk about being confident. That isn't something that you just wake up one day and you are. If, I'm not going to be dead confident about driving a car one day if I've not had those lessons and that time to really develop how I'm driving. It's a process. Everything's a process in that sense. So we don't need to have one big thing that happens to make us confident. It's actually kind of the opposite. You've got to look at goals and making small goals to add up and to work on what you want to work on. So that's the next task that I want to propose now as part of the session. I want you to really think about goals goals that you want to work on. So I know for me, I mean, I may look like now I'm speaking publicly, I suppose, because you're watching. But I still do worry about doing that, about when I have to go and speak in front of people or present something. And so I always maybe write a thing in my notes or in the back of my head that's sort of thinking, I want to work a little bit more on my public speaking, and I want to work a bit on that. Like, just to acknowledge that you want to do that is then at the forefront of your mind, and you can work on that as you go. So an example of a smaller goal with a bigger goal in mind is maybe, so I know that when I started having meetings with an organisation similar to the Harris, where I came in as a younger person to talk to them and advise them and help them with some of the stuff, some of the questions they had, I went in and I remember sitting on a big table with a lot of people who were older than me, who had bigger jobs than me, and I remember that in the conversations I wouldn't speak, maybe I wouldn't interject enough. So I went home and set a little goal to myself, thinking next time I'm in that room, I'm going to make sure I ask a question. I don't know what question, but I'm going to ask a question. And the next time I did, I pushed myself and I did ask a question, and now I ask a lot of questions. I think that that's an example of a smaller goal that you can just write down, make it a reality, tackle, and then hopefully next time it won't be as daunting. So have a little think about what you want to work on and really break it down and think about, if that was a tiny goal, what would it be? And just have a think about that. So I'm going to give now another 10 minutes for you to write a few little goals down. Now, this could also be on other topics that we're going to talk about, like it could be a well-being goal. You could say that, you know, for part of my day, I'm going to sit down for 15 minutes and just reflect on the day, or do some painting or something that's for yourself, a bit of well-being time. That is another goal that's relevant. Just because this session is on confidence doesn't necessarily mean it's something that's a big, bold confidence goal. All these things are connected. And so think about smaller goals that you can write down and keep in the front of your mind. And with these goals, I'm asking you to be realistic with them. I'm asking you to make them relatable and real goals that you can work on in a small scale of time, in a big scale of time. You don't need to write a goal and then do it tomorrow. It's just something that you can write down, be realistic with, and it's for yourself. So it's for you, write your own time scale, work to it yourself. This is for you. So you've got 10 minutes to write only 3 goals for now. 3 goals that you could maybe make bigger or do over and over again to sort of work towards this overall bigger goal that you're planning on. Okay, that's 10 minutes up. Hopefully with these goals, now this is the task for you. I give you this task now to go away and do. So you've got these 3 goals. It's up to you now to tick them off. And once those 3 goals are done, have another chance to reflect and think about this and think, okay, what are my next goals that I want to work on? Because you've got them now. So one thing I want to talk about now really briefly as we go, and we're near the end of our session, is a statement of stop comparing yourself to others. Now, I'm presuming that that's the case, but it might not be. For me, it was. With the work I did, used to always look at other people and sort of compare myself to them. And I think this is a natural thing. I think people naturally do compare themselves to others, people who are the same age, people that are from the same area. You compare yourself to what they're doing and then get a bit worked up when you might not be doing as much as them. But you don't know how much you're doing in comparison to them necessarily, because you don't know their full story. And one thing that I would always push and always talk about is you have got your own journey and your own set of goals. You don't need to compare yourself to anyone else. You just crack on with yours and work to your own strengths and work on those weaknesses, and you don't need to worry about other people. Think about yourself. So everything that I've shared so far is stuff that you would usually or typically maybe find when we're talking about confidence and how to rise your confidence up. But these next things are my 3 personal top tips that I really stand by. And my first one is, don't be afraid to ask the silly or the stupid question in a space or in a room. I think that I was always really worried about asking the stupid questions that I feel like, people are gonna laugh at me if I ask this. But I found through my work that I do now, and a lot of my friends say the same, that asking the stupid question is actually not a stupid question and not a stupid thing to do. But a lot of the time, half the people in the room have the same question as you. It's always something that I would push to do. If you're in a meeting with loads of people and you have a question in your mind, don't just go, I won't ask that. do ask it. Just ask it. It's never a stupid question. It is never a bad time for a question, because that's how we learn. That's how we rise our confidence. We ask questions and then we get responses from it. So never be afraid to ask the silly question. The second one is, don't pretend to be someone that you're not. Be truthful to yourself, and that's how you can work on your confidence, because once you start realizing and being truthful about, what it is that you need to work on, and, with talking to other people about what you want to work on, that's when you start to grow, and that's when you can, work on your confidence, share your skills with other people. And that brings me to my third one, which is kind of the same thing, but it's be honest. Be honest. This isn't just in a term of being honest with yourself, but just being honest in general with everything that you feel. And that goes back to asking the stupid question. Don't change what you're going to share with somebody because you think that it's maybe something that they want to hear. Be honest and truthful when you get asked a question, because that's how change happens, and that's how everybody's voices get included in the decision making. Reflection and download. This brings us sort of to the end of our online session, but it's something that I want to use as a task, as well as, using it as something that I want you to take away from this. So reflection and download is something that's really important for me. When I go and do a public speaking session, or when I go to meetings, I always take time afterwards, maybe while I'm on the train or on the bus or sat in the car, or even at home when I get back. I take the time to reflect on how it went. I don't just put it to the back of my head and go, oh, that was too awkward. I put it there to look at. I think reflection is important with everything, and I'm sure you do use reflection and think about things in different ways. But in this specific way, it's so important to just look at what went wrong, what went well, and then remember it for next time. Why wouldn't you do that? And I think that now, a lot of the time, as soon as we leave a space, or I'm straight on my phone, I'm straight looking on social media and stuff, or texting someone. But use that time instead to maybe just reflect on how that specific interaction or event went. One way that you can do this is maybe by, writing it down. Or, like I say, I use my phone all the time. I write things in my notes all the time. You can also write on a piece of paper, or just do it in your head. But for now, the task that I'm going to say is to write down 4 things that you want to take away from this session, what you want to reflect on from what I've said so far. Some things I really hope have changed your way of thinking, but more so for you to write these down and to reflect on it. Doesn't just make it you viewing this video and just passively watching, but it allows you to sort of keep those things and take them forward and to download them in your brain. So again, 5 minutes now, just 5 minutes this time, to think about 4 things that you want to reflect on from what we've spoke about today and that you want to maybe take forward. So thanks for reflecting with me. Thanks for talking about confidence with me and for listening for this long. I hope you're still watching. If not, I'm just floating around on the internet for no reason. But thanks again. Thank you to the Harris for this video. And don't forget, this is another reminder, the task at the beginning that you did about the 3 attributes or skills that you've got. Don't forget to go and ask 3 other people what your attributes are, what they think of when they think of you. Don't forget to do that. And I'll see you very soon for our next session, which will be on presenting, public speaking, speaking in groups. We're going to cover all of that sort of stuff. So I'll speak to you then. Thank you.